I'm Ezrah Raya, reporting on the hottest issues and the biggest stories. This is the Manila Times. The Senate is now bracing for the possibility of its website being next on the hackers list. The upper house revealed the spike in attempts to hack the chamber's website, with attempts both coming from abroad and domestic. This came after the House of Representatives website was hacked in the latest cybersecurity breach in the Philippine government. The suspect called itself the Three Musketeers, who claimed to be behind the hacking. Philippine government agencies with confirmed security breaches are PhilHealth Insurance Corporation, the Philippine Statistics Authority, the Philippine National Police, and the Department of Science and Technology. A data privacy expert said that this could be a form of activism in which hackers purposefully expose vulnerabilities to government system to call for change. Joining us now is the founder of Data Ethics PH, Dominic Ligot. Welcome to the Manila Times, sir. For my first question, these series of hacking in government websites have left citizens' data vulnerable. So, in your expert opinion, how did this happen, and what could possibly be the motive of these hackers?
Yeah, so as I was saying in another fora, we're dealing with at least two types of attackers. The PhilHealth attack is by the Medusa ransomware group, and that's very clearly a for-profit group. So they're doing it for the money. While the more recent hacks, I think we had PSA, we had DOST, we had PNP, and most recently the House of Representatives. I'm not saying it's all the same group, but they, as far as I can tell, they have not asked for a ransom, and they seem to be doing it for activistic purposes. So you kind of call it hacktivism. Like for example, in the House of Representatives, they left a message, no, when they defaced the HOR website, secure your systems. And I believe in the PSA hack, when it was released to the public via social media, in a way, there was a message there that government security is actually very weak. So maybe they're doing it to prove a point. Certainly, they haven't asked for money yet, but maybe that might follow later. But it was very, very different from the Medusa group. That was really, okay, you pay us 300,000 US dollars if you want us to not release this data to the public.
I agree with that, sir. Ano? And then if you look at yung recent hacking sa House of Representatives, parang nangaasar pa no? So parang it's just to inform the agency na you've been hacked. And
Yeah.
you can say that it's from the Philippines kasi nagtatagalog pa siya. So kahit October pa lang, fix your website hack by Three Musketeers. And it's very interesting what you said, These hacktivism, these activists could be doing this in response to the previous hacking with the Medusa malware, wherein they held hostage the information from PhilHealth Insurance
Yep.
Corporation. So this could be in response to that. But the difference is they're not holding any type of information. They just wanted to show na it's very easy to hack the government website. So in your expert opinion, sir, how are they able to do this?
Well, of course, the investigations are still ongoing. But if I can summarize, maybe the most common vulnerabilities, from past cases. One common vulnerability is malware. So employees of PhilHealth or anyone might have accidentally clicked an attachment that contains a malware code, and that opened the vulnerability to their network. That's very common. That's why we should always be wary of any emails that might look familiar, but if you look closely, it comes from a very different email address, and you have these hazardous attachments. Another one that's fairly common, believe it or not, is weak passwords. So passwords like password 1 or admin 123 or something that's easy to guess. So that's almost an automatic hack waiting to happen, because if I were the hacker, I would do that. I would test, okay, are these web servers vulnerable to we call it dictionary attacks, literally a list of words, commonly used passwords. And it's still amazing how many of these government websites are literally, admin 123 or something similar to that. It's also worth noting that there have been past leaks. For example, there were cases of government emails and passwords that were leaked a few months ago and were posted on the dark web. So every time you have a leak, that's always a risk that other platforms and accounts could be compromised, because the likelihood is, if your password in one platform, let's say social media, is this, it's probably the same password you're using for other accounts. So anytime a massive list is leaked, that's always a possibility that a hacker will be able to use that. So far we've got malware, we have weak passwords. Another common vulnerability is what we call backdoors. So hackers are able to compromise a website using some sort of backdoor exploit, they call it. And the point there is, anytime you have a platform or a web or an application that's exposed to the internet, for example, the PhilHealth member portal and similar applications, that will always be tested by a hacker, because they can see it and they can start playing around with your login, they can start playing around with your registration forms. These are all opportunities to insert some sort of malicious code into the website. So for example, instead of your name, they can insert some sort of a code, and if that input field is not protected, that code can get executed inside the server and provide whatever access to the attacker. No? I think those are the top ones that could have happened. Again, there's many other ways that attackers could have come in, but again, I think anytime you have like a government website or portal that's exposed to the internet, they should start checking if these portals are actually vulnerable, because I think that's one common theme with, at least if I'm not mistaken, all of the recent hacks have had some sort of a website or portal. There's the PhilHealth member portal. DOST had this oneexpert.gov website, which is supposed to be for our science and technology experts. I'm not sure if the PNP had an application. And obviously, the House of Representatives has a website where you can surf through all of their congressional work, right? All the bills. So again, that's another opportunity for a hacker to come in.
Those vulnerabilities that you've mentioned, they seem pretty common, It seems like you don't really need much of an expertise to hack through the malware or weak passwords as well as the backdoors. So all of these seem pretty easy. So it definitely shows how vulnerable the government websites are. So on another note, how can the government prevent these types of cybersecurity breaches?
Yeah, so I keep recommending, like very recently, I call it the 4 E's. First is education. Employees of companies, general citizens, we need to be reinforced with cybersecurity training. In the same way we are ready for an earthquake, diba? For fire, floods, because we do drills for disasters. When do we do cyber drills? For example, for you, Ezra, if you found out that your credit card was compromised, do you know the first 3 things you should do? Right? I think the average citizen does not. So that means cyber hygiene, cybersecurity is not second nature, and that's an education priority. Another aspect of education is, I don't think we have enough cybersecurity experts, specialists. In the same way you have a fire marshal or an earthquake marshal if there's an evacuation. Who's the cyber marshal if there's a penetration? I think it's a little late if you have to rely on a third party like the DICT or some major agency to come in. There's certainly going to be a lag before they can respond. So in any organization, there should be a first responder, and that could be a permanent role actually within the company. So those are 2: education. The second E is engineering. Basically, having a good sweep of all platforms that are exposed to the internet, because those will be naturally what you will offer for attack, check all of these logins, check all of these web server passwords, check any vulnerability to backdoors. I mean, that's the hygiene that needs to be done. And to be honest, some of these portals are rather old. In other words, they haven't been updated in a long time. We heard from another news article that the PhilHealth's antivirus licenses were expired, so they really need active maintaining. So that's going to be a big effort for all of the government. The third E is enforcement. And I mean this in both the legal and kind of the procedural sense. Like, everyone loves looking at the two most relevant laws here are Republic Act 10173 and 10175. So this is the Data Privacy Act and the Anti-Cybercrime Law. But as I keep pointing out, these laws are useful after the fact. So if there was a breach or somebody committed a crime, yeah, let's check the law. What happens to them? No, we can file a case against them or they're liable. But we need, I think, procedures and rules that are also preventive. You don't have to wait for something to blow up to take action on it. And that includes the constant, briefings and reinforcement and doing active sweeps. Every time you have a portal, you don't know if some malicious intruder had already planted something. And the last E is ethics, specifically data ethics. I think if you notice from the recent declarations, communications of the government, they keep trying to, in a way, downplay the impact. Like in PSA, it's just a community-based monitoring system, which is just a research database. In PhilHealth, the member database was not corrupted; it's intact. So they keep saying that, not mentioning that part of the leaks could be passwords and logins by the users of the platforms themselves. So that's personally identifiable information. We need to all be familiar with that term because that's our life. If your PII gets leaked, that's like donating your digital persona to someone else. Like I keep talking about SIM swapping. That's a possible attack. SIM swapping is, I have your number, I have your email, I have your ID. So I'm gonna call Globe. Hi, this is Ezra. I lost my SIM. Can I request for a replacement? And I'll get your SIM. If I have your SIM, I can get your OTP. I can reset everything. If I have your email, your OTP, then I can now take over your social media. I can now take over e-commerce and then eventually online banking. So one moment you lost your PII, the next moment you've already lost pretty much everything in your life. That's very, very possible. And again, the hacks are only the initial, the initial salvo. One hassle, but I think it is a practical precaution, is what I'm now calling firewalling your identities. Because of SIM card registration, most of us have been forced to centralize our identity to one number and one email, because that's what you register. But that's proving to be very risky. For example, if your email and number is in the PhilHealth leak, and that's the same email and number you use for everything else, then your entire life is now at risk. You can't trust, say, the government with your identity. Then you have to find ways of minimizing the damage. And I think ultimately that's the cost government is paying now, because if constantly they're getting attacked, citizens will lose their trust in government services. And if you lose the trust of the citizens, it just makes business harder to do. So I feel that that's the lesson that we need to learn here. We need to safeguard identities and thereby safeguarding the trust of the public.
Those are some very good points, sir, especially now that more and more of us are in the virtual space and the government is spearheading digitization in the country. So this came at an opportune time. For my last question, sir, so how can people be responsible in handling information in the virtual space? And I don't just mean the victims, so the users and as well as those people who are getting those information, because sometimes you don't volunteer those information. Some of the shops would collect your identity and collect your email and your cell phone number just for the sake of having a customer information. And how can people be more responsible in handling information and being more responsible in the virtual space?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that last E, which is the data ethics. And that part of it is assigning the proper valuation to data. In other words, you wouldn't allow people to just get your birth certificate, without your permission, right? You have to go through the registry of deeds to get it. Or you wouldn't allow people to just go into your bag and get anything inside your bag. You have to secure your bag. In the same way, we have to secure our data. The problem is we're very mindful about our bag. We're very mindful about our birth certificate, but we don't seem to care where we give our identification. We don't seem to care where we input our numbers. It's seen as a procedural thing, but not really security. Little things like when you check into a hotel, you know, you give them a copy of your ID and everything. There's no guarantee that information will be disposed of properly. What if that thing got leaked? Then they have your entire identity. And we seem to trust hotels with that. So in the same way, you should be cyber ready. For example, if you found out one of your identities got compromised, automatically you should be able to block all the other relationships that use the same identity within the next hour. It's like when you lose your wallet, diba? Block everything. And then take the time to firewall your identities. Again, I keep saying the data you use for banking should not be the same data you use for everything else. And even better, your email in work should not be used for anything but work because it's so easy to guess. And like for example, on social media like LinkedIn, no? If I know your company, I can search for everyone else who works in that company, and they most likely will follow the same email pattern, diba? So now I have the entire company's emails, and that's one step, closer to sending everyone a malware via email, and somebody will make the mistake of clicking it, and now I can access the company. So you see, it's all connected. Or if all of your emails and passwords were leaked in one hack, someone's going to use the same data and start, testing the account and password combinations on everything else, like your social media. So again, if you firewall your identity, then there's less risk. So you have one identity that was leaked, it doesn't really affect your other identities.
Thank you so much, founder of Data Ethics PH, Dominic Ligot. Maraming salamat po.
Thanks for having me.